Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. My name is Josh Bitsko. I'm a retired police captain with 24 years of experience in Las Vegas. Currently, I travel the country and I teach first responders, law enforcement, and leaders about courage, resilience, and leadership. Today, we're going to talk about the outlier principle. Basically, it's why do we train for, say, active shooter incidents in law enforcement when they're so rare? So I know if you're listening to this, you see them on the news all the time, right? Every time you turn the TV on or scroll through social media, it seems like there's another active shooter somewhere in America. Well, the 24-hour news cycle jumps on these stories, and especially when it comes to how law enforcement responded or if they didn't. But the reality is, most officers will never respond to an active shooter during their career. According to the FBI, there's about 35 active shooter incidents every year in the US. There are also roughly about 1.3 million active law enforcement officers. So if you look at the statistics of that, very few officers are ever going to have to respond to an actual active shooter incident. So if that's the case, then why do we train so much? Well, we do it not because they're common, but it's because if they do happen, we can't afford to be unprepared. So when an active shooter response goes wrong, the damage runs deeper than the scene itself. It shakes a community to its core. It leaves scars that just don't fade. If you look at Uvalde, Texas, over 370 officers were on scene at Robb Elementary. It took 77 minutes for law enforcement to stop the shooter on that incident. And during that time, kids were inside a room calling 911, calling their parents. So not only was this event devastating on the community, the most innocent among us were killed. It shook the sense of security that the community has when dropping your kids off at school. When I drop my kids off at school in the morning, I still think about active shooters and what could happen. Well, it did happen there. So it was tragic and it was devastating. It also broke that bond between law enforcement and the community. And it will take years, if ever, for that bond to heal in that community. So, active shooter incidents are textbook examples of these high impact, low frequency events, and they don't happen often. But when they do, the outcome hinges on how well the first few minutes are handled. We can't have the, well, it most likely won't happen here mindset. So, even if the odds are low, the cost of being unprepared is high. So, we train constantly in law enforcement for the everyday occurrences, vehicle stops, person stops. But we also train a lot for an active shooter response. Ever since Columbine, which changed how policing responds to any kind of shooting incident, we have specific training and policies and procedures on how officers are to respond to an active shooter incident. If you're listening to this today, I want you to also think about how that can affect your industry. What are these high impact, low frequency events that can happen if you're running a business? And how are you going to respond when it does happen? Now, those events could be, let's say, a cyber attack bringing down your computers. Do you know who you need to call when that happens? Is it your internet provider? Is it the FBI? So having policies and procedures in place and then training your people on what to do when that happens. What if the receptionist at the front desk of your office gets a bomb threat? What are the procedures that you have to do to make sure you're ensuring the safety of your business, and also you're not damaging the income of the business by taking your business offline for however long? So think about how training for the outlier, preparing for that outlier, can be important in your industry, because I can always equate it back to law enforcement. Is we train for officer involved shootings even though an officer can have 30-year career and never pull the trigger on their gun. We train for vehicle pursuits even though those are exceedingly rare anymore, with policies and the laws that are in place to allow officers to even pursue a vehicle. Because again, the consequences of not being prepared for something like that are extreme. So I'll leave you with this. Ask yourself, what are the things that can happen professionally, personally in life that are low frequency but can really shake you to your core? And are you prepared for that? Are you mentally prepared? Do you know what you need to do if those things happen? And if the answer is no, then maybe sit down and figure out at least some simple actions to take if it were to happen, so you're more prepared when one of these outliers occur in your life. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed the podcast or what I talked about, please subscribe or share it. And I appreciate you spending some time with me today. Thank you.